and welcome back to the Brando and Joe podcast. For this podcast episode, our guest is Larry Kravitz. He received his bachelor's degree in English from Stony Brook University, has previous experience working as a financial center manager, a training manager, and is currently the director for organizational development for Henry Schein. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Brando, Joe. Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're excited for everyone to hear about your, different path to an IO-related job that we've had previously on the podcast. It's actually interesting. I grew up like a couple minutes away from Stony Brook University.
Okay.
It's a great university. Yeah, we used to go there a lot, play basketball. It's like I feel like it's different. Like there's not really a center campus, right? It's kind of like there's roads in between.
Yeah, I mean it's changed since I've been there, right? I graduated in 2000, so it's been 23 years now. But it's definitely changed. I think the campus life has changed, and definitely acceptance there. I talk to people now that acceptance is a lot tougher now than when I went. So definitely some changes in that campus over the last 20 plus years.
Oh, that's awesome. As a non-Long Island local, it's definitely, I hear a lot of good things about Stony Brook.
Yep, absolutely.
So with that too, before we get into all the OD work that you've done, because OD is something that we also haven't really had on the show either, we kind of wanted to talk to you first about your unconventional path to IO. Kind of give us like the breakdown on how you ended up in OD.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to be an English teacher, originally a math teacher when I went to college. That's what I thought I was coming out of high school. I want to teach high school math. And once I got through Calc 3, I said, no, I don't want to do this. And I had a love for English. Usually math and English don't go together, but I really enjoyed some of the classic works and things like that. So I said, okay, I still want to teach, but I decided math wasn't for me, and I decided to go to English. And my junior year, I was sitting in a big lecture class, an English lecture class, and I was kind of zoning out. And I said, I never want someone to zone out on me. And that was the moment I decided I didn't want to teach high school anymore. Didn't know what to do, but I said, I'll get my bachelor's in English and go from there. At the time, I was working for IKEA, big furniture conglomerate, and they knew I was going to school for education, and they asked me if I would be willing to train their cashiers. I was working there part-time. I said, I guess I can train you cashiers. And I asked them if I could write a training manual. And they asked me if I could. And I said, I don't know, but I'll try. I'll learn. We'll learn together. So they gave me the opportunity to create a training manual and train their cashiers. It went really well. Wound up doing other training for them, customer service training, fraud detection. I just got really involved with enjoying teaching adults. So that's what started me off in that career. And then I continued to find things that were in that realm around, being able to teach adults different things. So I was lucky enough to be involved in the telecom space and do training around that. Also in the banking space, and had some opportunity, even practice what I preach as a financial center manager for a little bit of time. Got into technology training, did some training there, and then loved the leadership side. I really loved the leadership side of training, and that's when Henry Schein opened up for me, and a position opened up at Henry Schein, and that's really what got me involved in the OD side, the org development side of HR.
So it sounds like there's like some cool transferable skills that come from like education to either IO in general or like org development side, whether that's just like the way you communicate with people, the way, I guess like from the training perspective, is there anything specific that you saw in that change where you're like, wow, doing English or having like an education mindset really helped me in this maybe org development or like organization side?
Yeah, I think the communication piece was the most important, and it's a vital skill for anybody. But I'm a big fan of strength finders, and my top strength is communication. So I think that's just that transferable skill was really helpful for me. Even interviewing for my current role, we do a lot of talent planning and talent reviews, and I've never done that in the past. But my boss said to me, Larry, if you can facilitate conversation in workshops, you can facilitate conversations in talent planning and talent reviews. So that skill of communication really important. And I think the other thing was, and still for me, is just the desire to help people. I really enjoy helping people. I like seeing people grow and develop. So having that interest of seeing development others, watching light bulbs go off really get me going. When our employees reach out to us and say, hey, I appreciate you helping me learn this or do this or get here. That's what excites me. That's what I do it for. So, just having that drive of being invested in people, and of course, being able to communicate in multiple ways is really important from a facilitation standpoint, from an OD standpoint, I think.
Yeah, I like the way you explained it like that because now it's kind of got me thinking. Like, in a way, teachers are trainers, and training is like teaching in the terms of just like
Yeah.
teaching people and teaching people how to do things, and then it's kind of this like a similar way that I honestly, I guess I just never really thought about it that way. Actually, in our training development class, that's where we met you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of separate training and facilitation. I see those as two different skill sets, if you will. I feel like training, so I teach an Excel workshop just because I have a technology background. In that, I say I train, right? And trainers tell people what to do. Facilitators, and that's what I do a lot of, or most of my job is facilitating conversation. So when I do a lot of my leadership development workshops, yes, we teach a coaching model or we teach a performance management model, but that's only like the first 20%. The rest of it is really facilitating conversation. So I think those are two separate skill sets. Training is, hey, this is what you do, follow my instructions. Facilitation is asking those open-ended questions to generate the conversation.
So when you say that, what are your thoughts on like mediation training and stuff? Like, is that something that you've had to go about doing or getting certifications in that?
I've never gotten involved in mediation training. I was very interested in just coaching, and I know coaching sometimes leads to that mediation training. Never got involved in the coaching or the mediation training, just because of the size of our team and the number of employees we have to support. Being an executive coach, we'd only be able to touch a certain amount of people, and it's just not scalable for us. One thing I did as far as certification, I got my performance consulting certification a few years back, similar to coaching as but more around the training side and the needs analysis side. So that really helped me just give a better analysis for people that are asking for training, right? We get a lot of requests coming in our way. Hey, I want team building, I want this, I want that. And instead of just taking orders, I think is really important for us as HR practitioners, as OD practitioners, to get into the meat of what people really need. And performance consulting is a lot of that. It's really understanding what behavior is happening today, what behavior do you want tomorrow, and where the gap is, and helping leaders identify that. So that type of certification was really helpful to me in becoming just a better facilitator and better be able to think about strategy more with our leaders.
So with that too, I wanted to ask, we're talking about now more of the OD work that you're doing.
Yeah.
What is a day in the life of being in OD?
Yeah, so I think it might be different at every organization, but I break OD into kind of three work streams at Henry Schein. One is the learning and development side. So I spend about 40% of my time in learning and development. So that's everything from creating workshops to doing research to facilitating the workshops and all the analysis afterwards. It's about 40% of my time. The other 40% of my time is around talent planning and talent reviews. So it's sitting down with our leaders, it's looking at the structure of the organization, it's having conversations and facilitating conversations with their direct reports on what their succession looks like and what performance and potential looks like for each of their employees on their team. So we spend a good amount of time doing that. And then there's a piece of that where we do the analytics behind that. So I'm not responsible for the analytics, but I help to formulate the dashboards that we show the leaders for the teams that I support. So there's a lot of analytic work that goes into it afterwards. And then the other 20% is just other programming. So we do things like a mentorship program, which has grown immensely at Henry Schein. We run a learning with leaders program where we have senior leaders talk to more individual contributors to give them exposure and teach them leadership lessons. We do executive education, and we partner with other vendors for various things like C-level training and things of that nature. So that's about 20%. So 40, 40, 20. We get our hands dirty in other things. Wellness has been a top priority for us. So We've been involved with our wellness committees and things of that nature. We get involved with our HR strategy team. So we really get involved in a lot of areas, and we get to spend a lot of time with our senior leadership, which is always an interesting conversation.
So I guess for those who that don't know about like the IO jobs, and by those I mean me, because it sounds like in org development, like you do a lot of different things. Like one of the things you said is learning development, but then I also know that you can get internships and jobs in learning and development. So can you specialize in org development, or by like accepting a job in org development, like you're open to being like a generalist, and then you could do other things like learning development? That makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, it does. I want to be careful with the word HR generalist, right? Because generalist for HR, it's a different kind of role, right? You're getting involved in other areas. OD kind of is a specialty, but I think there's pieces of OD, right? So even though we're doing training, it goes to how the organization, grows, how it's built, and the skill sets that are needed. So, just as an example, all of our training revolves around the competencies of the leadership competencies of the organization. So while we're not generalists per se, we get to get our hands dirty in a lot of other places. I'll be honest, in previous organizations, I've done more of the training function, not the OD function. And that's been separate, right? Training has been a separate piece. And at Henry Schein, we have trainers that do specifically just training. So there are like sales trainers and there are product trainers. But at Henry Schein, we as an OD do the leadership and professional development training, along with the strategy piece around talent development and things of that nature. So I feel like I'm lucky that we get to get our hands involved in a lot of those things because being involved in wellness has taught me things that I never thought I would learn, has got me involved in different things. And it's actually, we just had a conversation with another group there. We were talking about wellness and, the it's taxing, right? Because we're not psychologists or psychiatrists. But at the same time, you get so many employees that come back to you and say, hey, you led me in the right direction. And we never pretend to be psychologists or psychiatrists, but we do want to make sure that our employees have the right resources, and that's what we do is we lead them in the right direction. So we get our hands dirty in a lot of different things, but we don't get involved on the we're not HR business partners. We don't have that function, and we don't do compensation. We don't have that function or benefits or anything like that. We'll talk to them, we'll partner with them, but we don't do that work.
It's funny that that you say like I'm not a psychologist and stuff because I know that we like talk about how you don't have like that IO degree per se, but you've been working and you've worked your way into IO. With that being said, though, like you're also using IO terms like competencies and like all of these other things that we've been learning about in our program. What have you done to prepare yourself for those types of IO conversations to give yourself like the vernacular that you need?
Yeah, so I'm a learner. I love learning and listening and reading, all that kind of stuff. So I try to get involved in lots of different things from a just a reading perspective, lots of different books and things of that nature. And then also part of it is the networking. So having a library of names. When something pops up, I'm not afraid to call up somebody that I've spoken to and said, "Hey, this is coming up at Henry Schein. What's your experience with that?" And that's reciprocal, right? So I'm okay with taking a call and saying, "Hey, somebody calling me and saying, hey, we're trying to get this done in this organization. I know you've done it, Henry Schein. Can you help me?" So I think part of it is just being open to learning, reading, and understanding. You got to be willing to do that. I think that's in any job you take. You have to be willing to learn. The skill sets are changing so much. Even the way we facilitate today, right? The way we facilitate today is very different than the way we facilitated 3 years ago. We needed to up our game from a virtual facilitation point. So we had to learn. We had to learn how to get interaction on Teams and how to make it more interactive, get more people speaking compared to the workshops that we were doing in person. So just being open to all different things, whether it's taking training courses. I use YouTube a lot. YouTube's a great resource, or Udemy or something like that. And just looking at those experts and finding ways to learn. We also we have a partnership with Gartner, which helps us out quite a bit. So Gartner's gives us some resources to just learn as we go, and go to somebody and say, hey, this is what's happening in the organization. Can you give us some resources? Can you help us? So that's a great partnership that we have.
You bring up a good point about being like a learner, and kind of like in any job, like you have to learn how to do things because you don't learn everything when you're in school. And I know previously you said you brought up about your technical skills, whether you're not so far on the analytic sides, but like you understand some of those things. However, you had a BA in English. Was this something that you, unless they teach it in English courses that I'm aware of?
Yeah, they don't.
But were these things that you Like the little like intro to stats course in like enlightenment. But so were these technical skills that you just learned through like YouTube videos or by yourself, and then for other students out there maybe coming from a different point, such as like a different type of major, are these skills that you like suggest they learn that like might help them succeed in like either maybe not even just sport development, just like an organization as a whole?
Yeah. So I've always had a personal interest in technology and software and things like that have always interested me. I always joke that I learned Excel, I don't know when, way back when, but I picked up the book Excel for Dummies, right? They had the Dummy series way back when, and that was the name of the book. And I read it, and I started playing in Excel, and then I started playing with other applications and things like that. And it's funny, when I wrote my training manual for IKEA, I did it in Word, and at that day, doing things like that in Word, that was a big deal. People weren't writing manuals in Word at that point. And the store manager, he was responsible for creating a business plan. He's like, "Do you know Excel?" I'm like, "A little bit." He goes, "I have to create a business plan every year. I have to create these charts, and it's all these numbers and things like that. Do you think you can do that with me?" So I got to learn how to create a business plan just because I said, "Well, I'm willing to try and make these charts in Excel and graphs and things like that he needed." So just being able to take that opportunity and say, let me learn from it. Let me see if I can pick up something. And I got to spend time learning how a furniture store runs, and how a CEO of a store plans and does strategic planning and things like that. So it's just taking those opportunities and going from there. When I joined my last company, it was a software company. They had a software product that they sold, and I decided to get a certificate in programming just to understand. And we didn't teach the programming side. We taught the user, the graphical interface side, how a user would use the software. But I wanted to understand what was under the hood of the software. So I got a certificate in programming. I did it online in my spare time, and said, now I understand programming a little bit. So I think any opportunity where you can go and say, hey, you know what, there's a skill that would be useful. Um, it's a good thing to have. I've learned all about the medical space. We don't train the medical space. We train finance. We train leadership and professional development. But still, it's important for me. I support our medical team, so it's important for me to understand a little bit about, the medical distribution space. Am I an expert? I'm not. But do I understand when someone says acronyms? I'll understand most of those acronyms because I've decided to ask somebody on those teams to give me access to some of their training, some of their LMS modules, things like that. So I think once again, for me, it was just I'm interested in a lot of different things. I like learning. I learn quickly. So for me, it's fun. For me, it's fun to just pick up something and learn. And I'll tell you now, with the tools out there, we're learning lots of things through like ChatGPT. We're using ChatGPT to help us with our analytics in talent planning. So things that we couldn't do before or would have taken us days or weeks to learn, ChatGPT does for us in 10 minutes. So it's crazy to see the advancement in technology and how much we can use it. And I think, the best piece of advice I can give is just be open to that, right? Be open to learning something new. Don't be afraid to try something. It's okay if you fail, you learn from it, but try something new, find those resources. There's tons of resources out there, tons of ways to learn. So for me, it was just, hey, I'm going to go learn this and figure it out. Didn't know telecommunications, and got into fraud detection and identity theft and learned that. So I think anything can be learned. I really do. I come from a space of learning, so I think anything can be learned. But you got to take the time to say, I want to do this, right, and have that drive to do it. There was a second part to your question. I didn't answer it, but I forgot what it was.
I don't know. It was such a good answer.
Yeah,
I think I forgot about what I needed
Oh, good.
to
Okay, then I answered it all. That's
It's
fine.
perfect.
I feel like we have to start calling you like not just an IO psychologist, but also maybe even a doctor, and maybe we can go into accounting and IT. It sounds like you have like a little bit of like trinkets of knowledge and everything, huh?
I think it's an advantage to do. Having trained in multiple sectors, I think is an advantage because I can help when a question comes up around analytics. I can help when a question comes up around something else. So, and the other thing I always tell people, it's funny. I think I mentioned I teach Excel, and I do it just because I have a background in technology, not because it's an OD thing, but we needed it and I could do it. And the first thing I do is I literally pull up Google. And I said, I'm not going to know the answer to every one of your questions, but I'm comfortable showing you exactly how I'm going to answer your question. And I pull up Google and I say, if you have a question, I'm going to Google that thing right in front of you, and we're going to find the answer together. So I think just having the confidence to know, well, I know enough to get me so far, and then I could learn something else. That's the important thing. I think people sometimes are afraid to say, well, I don't know. So, well, go find out, right? Go see what you can find out. And it's amazing what you can learn. It's so many resources at our fingertips.
It's nice to hear you say that because I feel like when you come from a school mindset, especially with like exams, like you have to know the information, and then you start working, and
Right.
you're like, your supervisor or director is like, oh no, let's look it up, let's see what's going on.
Right, yeah.
Like about ChatGPT, Brandon and I, like right before this call, we're discussing how we're like using ChatGPT in the workplace and how it's going to be super helpful in just whether it's in the analytical space. Or
absolutely,
I guess whatever you end up doing. So it's cool to hear that like you've been able to use that.
Yeah, I can tell you, 2 years ago we spent a lot of time trying to create one specific formula to help leaders figure out bench strength based on some things that we do. It took us a few days that we banged our head against the table, still couldn't figure it out. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I popped in. I'm like, oh, you know what? This is still a problem. Let's see if I can solve it. 10 minutes. 10 minutes in ChatGPT, and we had a solution with the formula. Something we just couldn't figure out, and we broke it down and whatnot. I showed the team how we did it. So I think a big part of that, and when I started talking to the team, they're like, well, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, you don't have to know how. That's the great thing is you talk to ChatGPT like you're a human being, and it's a human being, and it will walk you through. I go take it step by step. It'll walk you through, and I showed the team how we did it, and they were comfortable. And somebody else said to me afterwards, they're like, I've started to use ChatGPT. I'm like, good. Use it, learn from it. Said, I have no idea what I'm going to use it for tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll use it some way or shape or form. So, don't be afraid to learn and use it.
We're going to have to like write a book, like all these tips because I feel like they're all similar tips, but from different avenues in whatever organization, whether it's OD, whether it's compensation, whether it's software engineering or leadership or whatever it is. It's all similar. Whether it's, I feel like it's like being open, being able, wanting to learn. That has gotten people ahead, and not being afraid to fail. And it's like you kind of hear these like the whispers of that, like, and everyone says it until you find in yourself to actually do it.
Absolutely.
But it's comforting to hear that like everyone says to like be open to learn. I don't know. I feel like 80% of our guests have said that.
Yeah.
Right?
Or networking.
Networking, yeah.
Networking, yeah. I mean, and that kind of leads us to our last point that we wanted to ask you as well. And I'm sure you've kind of answered it, but what is that like one piece of advice that you have for prospective students out there trying to get into IO?
Yeah, you guys just said it. Networking, so important. So important. I wound up getting my job at Henry Schein because I was involved in ATD. My boss saw me my current boss saw me presenting on learning management systems. I saw her presenting on talent reviews. We formed a relationship, and I wasn't even looking for an opportunity. And when the opportunity availed itself, I said, hey, this might be a great next move for me. Other colleagues, other friends of mine that I have, it's all built through the networks that I've formed over the last 20 plus years. And nobody, networking is a two-way street, right? So you have to give before you expect to receive. And I'm more than happy to help one of my colleagues, whether they work for Henry Schein or outside Henry Schein. Happy to just hop on a call, talk through what's going on, brainstorm with people. because I know when I need something, I'll give them a call and they'll do the same thing for me. So just being able to form that network, getting involved in whatever organizations you need to get involved with to network is really good. I always say though, go into it with the mindset of I want to be part of this organization, not I want to get something out of it. Because if you go into it with I want to get something out of it, that's the wrong intent. I think it really is I enjoyed what ATD did and what it does. And when I got asked to be involved, I'm like, hey, this is cool. It wasn't, hey, I'm going to join ATD so I get another job, right? It was, hey, there are people that are like-minded. They like learning and development. And I didn't know this network existed. So let me go meet them and let me go talk to them and let me see what they have to share and what I can share with them. So it wasn't about, hey, what am I getting out of it? It was just about, hey, how can I meet people that want to do things that I want to do? Even today, like I volunteer for, I sit on the board of a nonprofit. I'm the vice president of a board for nonprofit, and it's just a agency that I think gives a lot of good to the community. And I just said, hey, I want to do it. I don't, it's not a paid thing. It's a totally volunteer thing, but I just like doing it. I like getting involved, and I can give them some HR guidance and some OD guidance, if you will. So, just get involved in things that you are interested in. Those wind up in really strong relationships, building that network, and you never know what comes from that network. So build that network. I think it's the most important thing. Don't tell the professors, but more important than classes. Don't tell any professors in that.
We won't tell Dr. Islam.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, don't tell Dr. Islam.
This is the test if they listen to us or not.
If he calls me yelling, I'll know why.
That is pretty funny. What was I going to say? I like that one of the points you made about looking at the company. And it kind of changed the way that like I did my internship and job search. And I was like looking at the company and the company culture, because in reality, with any company and organization, there's room to, as long as like big organizations, as far as I know, there's room to move up, whether it's like make better pay or do different things, whatever you're concerned about. But that company culture and like what the actual company does probably won't change. So then when I started realizing that, I was like, oh, I can like, maybe this company would be cool to look for. And then you look at the type of people that work there, like, well, I can find myself doing this. And now I'm like, all right, now what do they have to offer? Like, what can I do like with my skill set? And it seems, I feel like it seems easy to think about it that way, but it's definitely, you definitely have to make that change if that's what you want to do. And it's helped me.
Absolutely. I didn't think as much about culture for the first few years of my employment, just to be 100% honest. But when I joined the company, I joined Washington Mutual in the banking space. Their culture was so strong. Their values were fair, caring, human, dynamic, and driven. We lived it every day. It was so strong. It was just really powerful. And when I joined Henry Schein, that was one of the first things I looked at. Was listen, money's important and titles are important, all those things. But I said, is this a company I want to work for? Because I had a job. Right, I had a job. I didn't have to go anywhere. I was comfortable where I was. I said, "Is this something I want to do?" And Henry Schein, the values that Henry Schein has, the company has, followed my value set. I'm like, okay, this is a company that's trying to do well by doing good and wants to do things for the community and get involved. So yes, we have to make money as an organization, but at the end of the day, we want to be able to give back. And I'm like, well, this is great. This is I met my wife through charity work and doing work like that. And I said, hey, you know what? This is how I want to, I want to work for an organization that will give me the opportunity to do that. And we get to do that. We get to do that at Henry Schein all the time through different things that we participate in. So it was really, I think it's important. I think it's important to look at. I'm not saying it's the only thing to look at, but for me now, any job I would take, I would want to look at what's the value of the organization, because if there's not a strong value set, I think you get challenges until it gets built
out. That's amazing, and I think that's a great point that you said about ending up aligning yourself along the way. Because sometimes and for our prospective students out there, sometimes like you have to kind of take some jobs to start getting your feet wet and getting yourself in the door.
Absolutely.
And then as you start
Yeah.
figuring it out and you increase your network, like you said, like once you're increasing that network, jobs are going to become available through the people that you know, and you'll end up where you want to be
100%.
and find around the people that you want to be around too. So that's like fantastic advice.
Yeah, I forget the number, but there's a I don't know the percentage. It's really high that when a job's posted, don't quote me on the number, 70-80% of jobs that are posted, they know who they want to fill that job with, like as it's posted. So that networking, super important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just going to it. Even we just came back from the PSYOP convention, and the networking there was so helpful. Even if just like getting to know people, if there's no short term, like you're like I go there, I meet someone, I get a job. It's like it's like just making those connections.
Yeah, absolutely, so
for
important.
the long term commitment.
Yeah, well, Larry, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you getting on with us and talking to us about your path to OD and being a non-IO in IO now. So it's awesome to hear your way in.
Thanks, Brando and Joe. And listen, if you're looking for a ghostwriting gig, let me know. Maybe you can write my book. We'll see.
We got to get some more listeners first, so let's see if they make it to the end of the episode.
Thank you so much, Larry.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.
That was a pretty cool episode that we just had. I don't think we've had, I know for a fact we haven't had someone who hasn't even had a master's in IO reach his level of success and be able to talk about it pretty fluently.
Yeah, that was something that we brought up in the episode too, was the idea of him speaking like fluent IO. And but then he was talking about how he can do it in the medical field and doing it in other spaces. And it's really interesting. I feel like it's going to be great for students out there who are trying to end up in this field and working in this field. They're going to be able to see that you're not pigeonholing yourself no matter what. Like you can make your way in, especially it's all about who you know, and that networking aspect. I feel like that's probably what helped him out the most getting into IO was that networking side.
Yeah, honestly, that's how we met. We met him through one of our previous episodes, if you guys watched it, with Dr. Islam. It was a networking. He came and he met with our class, and then we followed up and we networked through that, and then we asked him to be on the podcast. That kind of shows you how powerful that transaction really is.
Yeah, and for students out there who are like trying to increase their network, the easiest thing that you can do is just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. It's only a few seconds, and
no one will yell at you.
No one, like the worst thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to say like, "Oh, I don't have the time. I'm sorry," and then you just go on and ask somebody else.
100%, yeah. But thank you everybody for watching and listening. Please tune in next week, and we'll see you guys then.
Yep. Take care, you guys.